Acts chapter 4. We're focusing on verse 16. I wanted to make a confession, and I may never do this again. But I desperately need our time together in worship and the revelation of truth that God gives. And I desperately need to do that with you. And when I stand up here and look out and you're not here, my heart sinks. Not because you need it, but because I need you involved in the flow of who He is. And after a week, I really need that. We're looking at Acts chapter 4, verse 16. This is a statement made from the Sanhedrin, the members of the Sanhedrin. They have pushed the apostles out, and they are trying to decide what they're going to do. And in verse 16 it says, saying, "What shall we do to these men? For indeed that a notable miracle has been done through them is evident to all who dwell in Jerusalem, and we cannot deny it." There is a theological debate, and has been for years through church history, over free will, choice. Do we really have a choice? Do we not really have a choice? Who has a choice? Who doesn't have a choice? Is there such a thing as real free will? God is sovereign. God knows the future. He knows what you're going to do before you do it. So if He knows what you're going to do before you do it, do you really do it out of free will? Or is it all predestined? And does the sovereign God already set out the pattern and knows exactly what you're going to do and is causing you to do it because it's all preordained? And when you discover and study that whole argument and try to weed your way through all of that, you find that there are three basic ideas, three basic camps that have come out of that. One is, of course, the group that says, hey, we are predestined. We don't have any choice. God has selected you. You are going to be saved. God has not selected you. You are not going to be saved. You don't have any choice in the matter. Doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter how much you pray. Doesn't matter how far you go. Doesn't matter how much religion you think you have. You're not going to make it. Why? Because God has chosen for you, because you are incapable of choice, for He has not given you free will. By the way, if you didn't know, the Plymouth Rock boys that came over here on the Mayflower, that's what they believed. The country was founded on that. Then there was a guy by the name of John Wesley who sent missionaries over to America in the 1750s, and the camp meetings hit this place with a whole new concept, and the brush arbors just swept through all the United States at the colonies at that time. And there was this phenomenal movement of God which shifted that whole thought process into another thought process, and that was, we do have free will. God has given us free will. And the reason we have free will is because there is this thing called prevenient grace, where God has given a measure of Himself to every individual. So God, while He is sovereign, has limited His sovereignty, which only increases His sovereignty and does not diminish it. So God is really sovereign. Why? Because He can limit that sovereignty and has given you the right to spit in His face if you want to. And a sovereign God gave you choice. So you got this side over here that said, wow, no choice. This side over here that said, whoa, we have choice. And you can choose salvation or not. Then there's a middle group that said, let's combine both of those. And it is true that I do have a choice. I can reject Jesus. I can accept Jesus. And Jesus and His relationship in my life is determined by my choice. But once I make that choice, then I have no choice. I'm in, because you can't be unborn. And once you're born again, you are born. So eternal security was birthed. And it was a combination of the two. Choice. Is there a choice? Is there no choice? One of the things that's so interesting is that as you begin to walk through the Scriptures and just study the stories of the Scriptures, every story, I'm talking every story, has choice in the middle of it. Isn't that amazing? It is to me. Doesn't matter what story you come to, you're going to find that Jesus has planted choice in the middle of that story. And somebody is choosing to do or not to do, be or not to be, act or not act, accept or not accept. And the choice is just woven through all the stories of the scriptures, both old and new. And hey, we could walk through those stories. But one of the most dominant one is Moses has led the children of Israel, of course, through all the wilderness wanderings and the 40 years. And they've been going in circles. And he's been through all the manna from the sky and water out of the rock stuff and quail in the bush and all of these miracles of God. And Moses has been right at the very heart of it. He's at his last days. He's not going to get into the promised land. He's going to turn the whole thing over to Joshua, who is going to lead them into the promised land. And when Moses comes to his last hours, he calls all the children of Israel, the thousands of them, calls them all together and addresses them and gives this history, walks them through the history of all that they have experienced together. And he comes to this climactic kind of statement, which is in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19. And Moses turns to all the people of Israel and says, I call heaven and earth as witness today against you, and I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, choose life, that both you and your descendants may live. And he planted right in the middle of the Israelites and all they had been, yes, and all they were now going to be, and it was all in their hands to do what? Choose. Choice in the middle of the story. Oh, it moves on. Joshua now is taken over, and he too, after Moses is gone and Joshua's taken over, and they're making all these preparations and doing all, they're ready to go into the promised land. They're going to march into this thing, and Joshua calls all the people together again, and you know what he says? Same thing. Joshua 24:15. Preachers love to preach on this passage. Choose for yourself this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. He drew a line in the sand and said, boys, step over, make a choice. It's down to you. What are you going to do? And choice is in the middle of the story. Oh, my favorite, Mount Carmel, Elijah. There's King Ahab married to this gal Jezebel. Oh, man, what a mess. Here they are. And Elijah has had it up to here. And you know what Elijah says? Come on, let's get together. Let's have a contest, boys. Let's have a contest. Build the sacrifice altar. Put the sacrifice on top of it. Dig a trench around the middle, around the edge. Put the water in the trench. Soak it good, brother. And let the God who is really God answer by fire. Bring in the 450 prophets of Baal. You got them all. Bring in the 400 prophets of Asherah that eat at Jezebel's table. Bring them all in. Have your time, brother. And let's have a contest. And he ended up with this statement in 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 21. How long will you falter between two opinions? How long will you falter between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, and if Baal, follow him. Get with the program. Let's decide. Come on, choose. Get in or get out. That's the story. It's in every story. Every story in the scriptures, you come back to choice. Isn't that amazing? It's interesting when you go to the word choose. More often than not, the majority of the time, the actual word choose is used in the New Testament. It refers to God, not man. That when you come to God, guess what? At the heart of God is choice. He's always choosing. And again, when you come to the New Testament, the word choose, it refers more to God in the majority of times than it does the man. In fact, in the book of Acts, 5 times the word choice shows up, and guess what? It's always God, never you. In the book of Acts. Some of my favorites, we quote it all the time. Ephesians 1:4, he says, Paul just screamed out, it says, just as he chose us. God made a choice. And at the heart of the sovereignty of God is free will. And he chose us in him before the foundation of the world. Woo! You guys got a lot of self-control or you'd be shouting, I know. Wow, isn't that phenomenal? He chose us before the foundation. He had a choice. Nobody forced him. Nobody put a gun in his back. Nobody got him over a barrel. Nobody prayed for 20 hours. Nobody fasted 2 meals. Come on, God just out of the sovereignty of his own will, right in the heart of that sovereignty, his choice, and he chose you. I need to talk to him about that. I don't know why he would. That is, choose you. Colossians 1:27. Same thing. Listen to this. To them God chose to make known what are the riches of the glory of this mystery among the Gentiles, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. God chose. Now I want you to track with me on this. There are 2 strong elements in the choices God makes. 2 strong elements. One is, this is really important. One is God always chooses according to his nature and character. In fact, it's a little stronger than that. It is impossible for God not to choose according to his nature. He cannot go against himself. See, whatever God is inside, whatever his makeup is, whatever his personality is like, whatever drives him inwardly, whatever the core of his system really is, whatever that is in God, that determines his choice. He can't choose anything but according to his nature and his inward core being. Whatever God is, he has to choose according to what he is. He can't do anything else. In fact, who God is, his character, his nature is so powerful and so sovereign that it literally reaches out and shapes all of his choices. And again, he has no choice but to choose according to his nature. For instance, Paul said in 2 Timothy 2:13, if we are faithless, we have been. Faithless? Yeah, we've been without faith. Have we been without faith? Oh, yeah, it's my nature. I'm without faith. If we are faithless, he remains faithful. Why? He cannot deny himself. See, he has to be faithful. Why? It's who he is. And he just can't do anything else. It isn't that he has to count to 10. It isn't that he has to get himself under control and do it. It isn't that he's backed against the wall and doesn't have any choice. It's that he chooses, you got to get this. He chooses according to his nature. That means it's really important to find out what his nature is. Well, there's no question about that. 1 John 4:8-16. God is love. Well, that's not up for grabs. That's not, you're always talking about the love of God. Well, no. Well, that may be, but why? Because it's who he is. That when you take a knife and slice him down the middle and crack him open and look at the heart, I'm talking Trinity God now. When you're talking Trinity God, what you're talking about is a throbbing heart. At the core of the universe is a throbbing heart of love. There is no question, biblically, there is absolutely no question about that. God doesn't flip in and flip out of that. That's the core of his nature. God is holy. Well, I thought you said God is love. Well, the God is holy and God is love. So evidently love and holy are the same thing. So if you want to know what holy is all about, it's not goody, it's love. The total expression of love, and God is absolutely consumed with it. His nature flows with it. It's absolutely the core of his system, and he cannot choose regardless, he cannot choose regardless of the circumstance. He cannot choose other than according to his nature. So, come on, think this through. So, if you see a circumstance in which it looks like God is mean and nasty, you haven't seen the whole circumstances. There's things going on you don't know about, because in that circumstances, God has expressed his love, even though you may think he's expressing meanness. And because you don't know the whole story and you make judgments and say, oh, God is revengeful. Oh, God is mad. God's out to get you. No, he's not. Why? Because his nature will not allow him to do that. So when you read an Old Testament, it looks like God, whoa, man, he just smashes people. He just gets ticked off, and you don't know the whole story. You didn't see the whole circumstances. You don't know what's really going on. You're making judgments about the heart of God, and God cannot do that. It is impossible for him to do that. He cannot act other than he is. And what is he? He is absolute, down to it, 100% powerfully controlled by his nature, which is love, and he cannot get mad at you. That's biblical. So, God has choice. God makes choices. Two aspects to that making of choices of God. One is, he always has to choose according to his nature. So whatever his nature is, he has to choose according to that. He doesn't have any choice. Number two aspect. Not only does he always choose according to his nature, but he chooses according to a plan. You see, what's going on is God has this inward nature of love. It just pounds within him. It is so sovereign in his life, it reaches out and dictates all of his choices, which then causes all of his actions. And this love that is sovereign within the character and mind of God is so powerful, it acts out and planned a strategy. In other words, God has a distinct plan that he's following. In other words, his love is not just an accumulation of a bunch of feelings. It's not, his actions are not just love actions that just he gets up and, oh, yeah, you get a popsicle today. Oh, you get a candy. See, it's not that. He's not Santa Claus. He doesn't act out of, he has a distinct plan. He's going someplace. So his nature acts out in that distinct plan, and every one of his actions are determined by his character that has a plan. So this is not, oh God, I got cancer, heal me. Well, God doesn't love me because he didn't heal me. Well, wait a minute. God does love you. That's his nature. Well, why didn't he heal me? Because he's got a plan. Do you like that? I don't like that. See, I want God to love me and fit into my plan. But that's not biblical. See, God loves you and knows all the variables of your life and knows beyond what you know. He knows about your grandkids that are born. And out of his overwhelming love, he has a plan. And all of his decisions are made out of that love according to the plan. You can trust a God like that. That's the kind of God I want. Whoa, I want to give my life to that one. That's the kind of God to get involved with. Okay, Manley, what about the passage? Oh, yeah, the passage. The passage. And what does that have to do with me anyhow? Oh. Let me tell you what it has to do with you and our passage. What it has to do with you and our passage is, let's back up now. Let's go over it again. See, God, at the core of God, is choice. And God always chooses out of his nature, which is a love nature. So he can't do anything but love. So every action God does, every choice God makes, is produced out of love and has love smothering it. But he doesn't just act. It isn't just an accumulation of love acts. It's this character, this nature, this love of God is so powerful that it came up with a plan. And so when his love acts, it fits into a plan, and he's going someplace with it. Now, what does that have to do with you? You're made in his image. You mean I look like God? No. In fact, the truth of the matter is, God doesn't have a nose, God doesn't have ears, God doesn't look anything like you. Because he isn't physical. I'm talking Trinity God. It's not physical. And a physical God and a non-physical God, you know what he did? He came and took on our flesh. He came and looked like us. He didn't make us look like him. He came and looked like us. Now that's Bible, right? So I didn't get my nose from God, got his nose from me. That's Bible. Well then, if I'm made in his image, what are you talking about? Obviously, it's not physical stuff. So what are you dealing with? Oh, we're dealing with this character, this nature, and this plan. So guess what? God is sovereign, absolutely love, a love nature, and he has to act out of his nature. He cannot make a choice that isn't in his nature, that is contrary to his nature. Oh, that's the way you are. You cannot choose opposite of your nature. Come on, think it through. You have to choose. You have no choice but to act out of your nature. Whatever your nature is, you have to act that. Did you ever, probably not you, but I would look at my life and say, Manley, why did you do that, you idiot? Why did you do that? You didn't think it through. I know. If you'd have thought you wouldn't have done, I know. Why did you do that? You know why I did that? Because that's what I am. And my actions, my choices spill out of my nature. Well, you didn't think it through. Don't have to think it through. I'm going to act out of, I don't have any choice. I have a nature, and that nature dictates what I do. And I have no choice on that one. And not only do I have a nature that dictates what I do, but guess what? This nature in my life is so powerful that it sets up a plan, and I have a plan. What's my plan? I don't know, but my nature knows. And my nature is setting into motion a distinct plan. And I'm acting out of that nature, and I'm acting according to a plan. And how did I get where I am? Oh, brother, it's my nature that had and that's why I am where I am. And my life is not a product of just some generic kind of whoops. It is a distinct result of choices I've made that came from my nature that come according to a plan. And I don't have any choice on that. It's interesting in the scriptures, in the Greek language, that there are two word groups. This is really significant for me. Word groups in the New Testament for choosing or choice. One is the word group, bole. And there are several words that come out of that. And bole, as I understand it, is more of a thinking. Sit down, think it through, and choose. It comes out of volition, the will, but it's the idea of thoughtful wrestling with, looking at circumstances, involvement, and choosing. Mentally choosing. Now, there's another word group, which is the word group thelmia. Thelmia is more of a, oh, I just want it. Oh, I just desire. I wish. Which is more of an, emotional, maybe, I don't know. But it's an inner, you don't think it through. You don't sit down. You just desire. I just want. So you got these two ideas. One is you sit down, think it through, come up with a decision. The other is let me give you an example. I want a new car. Why do you want a new car? Well, the old car's falling apart. White Lightning's hood doesn't go down right. It's been mashed in the front. I really need a new car. I want a new car. I have this desire for the new car. I drive by the car lots. I look at them. I see the car. But I don't sit down and think through a plan. But you know what I do? Because I have this inward desire. You call it the car fever. Because I have this inward desire for a car, I go down to the car dealership. And there is this guy called salesman. And guess what? He logically walks me through how I can buy that car. Now, I look at car salesmen and say, oh, what a bunch of, good night. They just talk you into, no, they didn't talk me into anything. See, I really wanted it, and I wanted somebody to talk me into it. Please, somebody set me down and say, this kind of down payment, you can, and hey, I'll get this discount, and you can, and finally, whoa, I can logically think it through, and boom, I got the new, because I wanted it all the time, and he helped me walk through it. So you got these two categories, right with me? You got this sit down, think it through stuff, and you got this, I just really want it. A good example of this is in Luke chapter 22, verse 42. Jesus, interesting passage. You see, it's the Garden of Gethsemane. So what you got is, you got Jesus in the throes right up against the wall of the crucifixion. And this is no light thing, you understand. He's sweating drops of blood. In other words, he's under so much, there's so much demonic stuff going on, and so much spiritual warfare taking place, and so much pressure on him that out of the pores of his flesh, blood begins to flow. This is stress at a high level. And he's wrestling with he prays 3 times. And the indication is that he prays 1 hour each time. So that's 3 hours of prayer on this thing. So he prays an hour, comes back to his disciples, they're asleep. Goes off, prays another hour, comes back, they're asleep. Goes off, comes back, they're asleep. He prays 3 hours, sweating this thing out. And in Luke chapter 22, verse 42, you have this verse. He cries out in his prayer, Father, if it is your will, boule, meaning what? Father, you have thought this through. You have chosen because you are sovereign in your thinking. And this is not, I really wish. No, this is, you have thought this through, and you have a plan and a will, and I want to be in that will, and if it could be in your thought through plan that I could get out of this, that would be great. But Father, he says, do you get it? Father, if it is your bole, take this cup from me, nevertheless not my thelmia, but yours. I don't want to live according to So those are the two ideas. And the word choose which is really phenomenal. Oh, our story. Come to the passage now. Lame beggar. Peter grabs him by the hand, yanks him to his feet. In the name of Jesus, the guy's made totally well. Psychologically, physically, spiritually, in every way, the guy's made totally well. He's going into the temple for the first time. He's hanging on to Peter because he equates his miracle with Peter, because Peter is the instrument. So, and then a crowd gathers around, and there's 20,000 people gathering around, or at least 15,000. 5,000 of the men get saved. So you got this large crowd gathered around. And as they're gathered around Solomon's porch, wow, they're all looking at Peter, and this guy's hanging on to Peter, and it's like Peter's responsible, and he's horrified by this because he wants absolutely not one single ounce of credit for any of this, because it just wasn't him. It just couldn't, no. And he comes back and says, it's Jesus, guys, it's Jesus. I'm telling you, it's Jesus. The person of Jesus is on the scene, and the person of Jesus has brought this to pass. And immediately the Sanhedrin and the leadership of the temple burst in, separate the crowd out, grab the guys, take them down, put them in jail, bring them out the next morning. Now you got the whole Sanhedrin, horseshoe shaped, they're standing right in the middle, and they're all staring at Peter and John. By what power or by what name have you done this? And Peter says, Jesus, it's Jesus, it's Jesus. It isn't by any of my power, it isn't by any of my name. It's all about Jesus. And he just absolutely will not take one single ounce of, well, yeah, Jesus used me. Wouldn't even say that. It's just Jesus. And then you come to verse 13, which we've been trying to deal with. When they saw the boldness of Peter and John and perceived they were uneducated and untrained. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't them. Couldn't have been them. Bunch of hicks? What do you call them around here? Hillbillies? Bunch of, hey, they're from the north. It couldn't be them. And they marveled. And then they realized everything that's coming out of those boys is the same thing that was coming out of Jesus. Everything that irritated us about Jesus is now irritating us with these guys. It's like we got rid of one Jesus and two of them are back. What's the deal? This isn't right. Something's wrong. And realized that these boys were under the influence of the same thing that was going on in the person of Jesus. And so they immediately said, hey, here's what we're going to do. You guys step outside, close the door. We don't want any input from you. We don't want any input from Jesus. We don't want anything going down that has to do, no, shut the door. And they turned into themselves, into their own nature. And you come to our passage. What shall we do? Now, they're not discussing the issue of, should we let him go? Should we? No, they're not discussing that. Should we buy into Jesus? Should we? No, we're not discussing that. Should we change our mind about? No, we're not changing our mind about. Should we accept Jesus? No, we're not even discussing that. They've already made up their mind. Why? Their nature. And their nature has told them, we will not buy into Jesus. We didn't buy into Jesus for 3 years. When it came down to his teaching, we didn't buy in. Our nature would not allow us to buy in. When it came down to his crucifixion, we had to do that. Our nature demanded that. When it came to his resurrection, we had to tell lies. Disciples stole the body. We didn't have any choice. Why? Our nature demanded that. Who we are inside, when we turn inside to our nature, it demands that kind of decision. That determines our choice. I didn't have any choice on that. Now here's his apostles. They've come. We're getting the same thing from them. And are we going to back up? No, sir. Why? Our nature will not allow that. We absolutely will not receive this. I don't care how many miracles they do or what they say. We're not buying into that. Our nature will not allow us. We will not have that influence in our lives. Shut that door. We are going to decide according to our nature. All we're discussing is, what are we going to do to them? Because our nature is already decided. And our nature has a plan. Now, you say, where do you get all that out of what shall we do to these men? Well, it's the Greek word do. It's poieo. What shall we poieo? What's going to spill out of us to get, what's going to cause what do we wish? And our decision to these guys is going to come from where? Our nature. And whatever our nature is, that's what we're going to choose. And we don't have any choice on that. Let me get this straight, Manley. So you're saying that we don't have any choice? That our actions, what we say, our attitudes, the expression of our life is all a product of our nature. So I don't have any choice in what I do. You know how many guys have come out of jail? And while I visited them in jail, they would say, "Oh, I'm so sick of this. I've lost my family, lost my job." Had a guy just a couple days ago. Lost my job, ruined my relationships. I've lost everything, all because of drink. I've lost it all. I'm sick of it. Step out of jail and go get drunk. Why do they do that? Don't have any choice. It's my nature. I am dominated by my nature. I don't have any choice. Well, this is sure depressing. Oh, I forgot to tell you. While I have a nature and my choices are a direct result of my nature and I have no choice in that, I do have a choice in my nature. Well, now that doesn't make any sense. I know. Because if my nature is evil, if my nature is self-centered, if my nature is demonic and it's always determining my actions, then my nature is never going to allow me to choose Jesus. That's true. But friend, here's the deal. There are moments that God intervenes and orchestrates, like this moment, where the Spirit of God begins to move and prevenient grace is powerfully affecting us and the demonic forces are pushed back and there is moments of light where I am turned loose to say, "Oh." And I'm liberated to choose. And by His great strength, He will grab a hold of me and help me choose. Now out there, I get that. I'm dominated by my nature. I can't help myself. I know that. But there are moments like this. There are moments like this. There are moments where, oh, He comes. And it isn't just here on Sunday morning, you understand. But there are moments but this is that moment. And a moment when the Spirit of God has moved, people have prayed, and worship has taken place, and the place is cleared of the demonic forces, and there is liberty, and we come right up against truth, and I have the opportunity of saying, "Oh, I could be different." Listen to these words. Romans 6:18-16. Paul said, "Do you not know that to whom you present yourselves slaves to obey, you are that one slave whom you obey?" That makes sense. I'm full of myself. Self-centered nature. I have nobody but myself. All wrapped up in myself. And all my decisions spill out of that self-centeredness. My attitudes, the way I think, the way I react, the things I do, the things I don't think through, I just do, all spill out of this self-centered nature. So I am a slave to self-centered nature. Read it again. Do you not know that to whom you present yourselves slaves to obey, you are the one, you are that one slave whom you obey, whether of sin leading to death or of obedience leading to righteousness. But God be thanked that though you were slaves of sin, yet you obeyed from the heart that form of doctrine to which you were delivered, and have been set free from sin because you are a slave of righteousness. Now, the impact of the verse is you are going to be a slave. Oh, yeah. You're going to have a nature, and your nature is going to dictate your choices. But you do have a choice on the nature. You don't have a choice on being a slave. You're going to be a slave. Somebody's going to tell you what to do. But you do have a choice on who's going to tell you what to do. Jesus, make this a moment. Oh, you already have. Make this a moment. Make this a moment in my life. Where I am revealed, who I am is seen. Clarity is plain. Demonic forces are pushed back. And I hear, I see, the gate is discovered. Their narrow way is seen. And the hope is implanted in my mind because you have wrapped your arm around me that I could be different. Don't let me be like the religious leaders. Confronted with Jesus, they operate out of their nature. Confronted with Jesus, they crucify Jesus. Confronted with the resurrection, they lie. Confronted now with the apostles, they shut them outside. Don't have any choice. Nature demands it. Who they are has to. Stop us in our tracks. Arrest us with the truth of yourself and give us liberation moments when we could be, Heads are bowed. Choice. 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 I call heaven and earth as witnesses today against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both you and your descendants may live. Choose for yourself this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which were your forefathers served who are on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. How long will you falter? How long will you falter between two opinions? Ladies and gentlemen, if the Lord is God, follow him. If Baal, then follow him. A line is drawn in the sand. Get in or get out. You're driven to choice. He has come. Will you join me in stepping over the line?